Morning, everybody, and welcome to today's meeting of the Local Pension Board. As usual, this meeting is being broadcast live to the public. For those not able to watch live, the webcast will be recorded and made available for viewing on the County Council's website after the meeting itself. Today, we welcome a new member of the board, Dr. John Bloxham, County Councillor. Welcome, John. Before we begin, can I just please remind everybody to only turn on their microphones when you wish to or invited to speak, please. Okay, thank you. As we have new members, it'd be useful if all members and officers introduce themselves. So we'll just go around the table clockwise, yeah? So I'm Manjit Singh Saroya. I'm the chair of the Local Pension Board, and I used to work for the County Council about 5 years ago. I left and retired, and thank you. Thank you.
I'm Angie Smith, Democratic Services Officer.
Morning, Anthony Cross, employee representative, former head of law at the County Council, where my big claim to fame was I used to do pension appeals.
Morning. I'm County Councillor for Loughborough North.
Hello, I'm John Bloxham. I'm the County Councillor for Blaby and Glenparva.
Morning everyone, I'm Ruth Gilbert. I'm the Head of Finance at Leicestershire Police, but I sit on the board as an employee representative. Front.
Good morning all, I'm Ian Howe, I'm the Pensions Manager for the Leicestershire Pension Fund.
Morning everyone, I'm Stuart Wells. I work as a team manager in the pension section.
Simone Hines, Assistant Director of Finance and Commissioning at the County Council.
It's lovely, thank you everybody for that. First item business on the agenda is appointment of Vice Chair. Could I ask for our nominations, please?
I'd like to nominate John, please.
Thank you, Councillor Royce. And can I ask for show of hands? Sorry, seconded, please. Sorry, seconded. Thank you. Can I now can I ask for a show of hands? All those in favour? No, thank you. That's fine. So, Councillor Bloxham, you've been appointed as Vice Chair for the Local Pension Board. Congratulations. Minutes of the meeting held on the 25th of June. I move that the minutes of the meeting held on the 25th of June are taken as read and confirmed and signed. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you. Is that agreed by everybody? Thank you. Next item is question time. Next, I confirm that there are no questions received. And next item on the agenda, number 4. I can confirm there are no urgent items to be taken either by the chair. Okay. Item number 5. Could I now ask members if there are any declarations of interest in respect of items on the agenda, please? No, no. Okay, that's unanimous. No. The 6th item, we're flying through this. This is great. Number 6 item, the first report on today's agenda is the Pension Fund Administration Report from April to June 25, quarter 1, and Stuart Wells, who's a pensions project manager, is presenting this report. Over to you, Stuart. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, everyone. So for the benefit of the newer members of the board, this is a regular report that I bring to the board, basically reporting on what the pension section have been up to in the last quarter. So we'll run through, there's various standard items within this, and I'll pick out the key parts, but happy to take questions on any aspect of the report. So I'll start with the performance of the pension section. So the results for the quarter are included in Appendix A. The figures are very similar to the previous quarter, so no immediate talking points spring to mind, but happy to take any questions at the end if you have any. We did report last time that we were working on reviewing how performance is measured and reported on. So this is continuing. It's ongoing. It has been expanded to include some other areas where we also report on performance, including the annual report. So the existing approach will continue for now until this review has been concluded. Moving on to service delivery. The figures for the work areas are included within the report for April to June. Just wanted to pick out the incoming transfers, that those numbers, the numbers of those transfers do remain high. This has been an issue whilst experienced staff have been trained on transfers, and we've also been focusing a lot on year-end work, which I'll talk about later in the report. So this will be a focus going forward now that the year-end work has been completed. So hopefully we'll see some improvement on that area going forward. So we're going to move to section point 15, the audit reports. 2 new audit reports were received in the quarter, one covering the National Fraud Initiative and the other the Code of Practice. So the National Fraud Initiative is a wider project, but from a pensions perspective, it identifies any pensioners that appear to have died, and we check to make sure that we're aware of these. Any cases where we weren't aware that pensioners have died, then those payments are suspended whilst the case is investigated. The Code of Practice, so a lot of work was done during 2024 to ensure that the section complied with the Pension Regulators Code of Practice, and following the conclusion of that work, audit examined what we'd been up to and ensured that everything was in place to ensure that we complied with the various requirements. So this generally covers checks and balances within the fund, ensuring that the scheme is administered correctly. So audit we're happy with both of these areas. There were a couple of recommendations that were made, and these were accepted. So have been concluded. To move on to the websites. So we're working on 2 new websites at the moment. We've got a general website which is going to cover information about the scheme for members. That's also where we'll hold policies and strategies, and information about investments is also going to be held on there. In addition to that, we've also got an online self-service website. So that's reaching its end of life in January. So our suppliers are currently working on a new version for that. So with regards to the general website, we're currently adding content to the site, and we continue to aim to go live with this at the end of November. With regards to the self-service website, this is currently with the system suppliers Hayward. So we're waiting contact from them to arrange training for the staff with regards to how this site is administered, and that's scheduled for October. So we'll expect to get training on that. So just for awareness, Hayward's currently have the member self-service site. This will the new one will replace this. So it's effectively an upgrade. And again, the plan is to go live at the end of November. Right. So I wanted to move on to point 37 and McLeod. So officers continue to work on the implementation of the McLeod remedy. So we've been spending a lot of time on this. Again, for the newer members of the board, McLeod was an age discrimination judgment, which we've been working to implement the various remedies within the ruling. We again will cover the year end later, but this year's year end statements included any additional pension that would be due for members as a result of the McLeod ruling. So that's been done. I'll pick up on that. The current focus is to address pensioners where their payments are already in place, their pensions are already being paid, but there could be a retrospective increase to their pension as a result of the McLeod ruling. So our initial reports have identified that there's approximately 400 of these members. There could be more, but we're starting to work through these. We've identified what we think is a reasonable way to deal with these, and we're beginning work on that. So that's ongoing at the moment. I wanted to move on to pension dashboards. Again, this is a subject that's been talked about regularly in previous reports, but this is a national exercise that is a government initiative, and ultimately the aim is that UK citizens will be able to log on to a website and be able to trace any pensions that they have within the UK. So we're spending a lot of time preparing for this as well. The recent focus has been on our deferred members. So these are people that have got an entitlement to a pension. They've left the scheme, but it's not due for payment yet. So someone who leaves, say, at 35, who's built up an entitlement to a pension, they're one of our deferred members. We have an issue where deferred members leave the scheme. We ask them to tell us if they move house. They don't always do that. And we've identified that we've got a large number of members that their address appears to be out of date. So we identified this using our current address tracing provider. So they've provided information for us as to where they think these members currently reside. And our initial thoughts on how we update records was we didn't necessarily want to just take this information as read. We wanted to write out to scheme members, get them to confirm that they are who they should be, and then we could update our records as a result of that. So following consultation with audit as to how we could approach this, we contacted an initial 300 members, wrote to them and asked them to complete and return a form by the end of July to confirm that their address was correct. So we had a disappointing response to that. We only had 34 forms returned, which clearly is not enough to conclusively prove that the information was either accurate or inaccurate. So we followed that up with a further exercise to write to 100 members, and we simply said, give me a call and let me know that this is correct. So we had a better response to that, but it still wasn't enormous. The current response, I think we've had about 25 people come back to us to confirm that they are where that they say they are. So we're now considering how we deal with the rest, whether we write to more or whether we decide to rely on the data and update records without further verification. Given the numbers involved, that would be our preferred approach, but we are interested to get a view from the board on this area, and obviously we'll consider what views people have on this. So that's something that's we'll yeah.
Sorry, Stuart, are you asking for views now? Or at the end? Or do you want to do this? Questions, etc. Well, because
we'll take it at the end.
Okay,
Chair, is that
fine.
okay? Yeah, come back to that. Thank you. Okay, and further to dashboards and the latest position with that, we're working with our system providers to ensure that the technical link between our system and the dashboard is in place. We'd done some testing earlier in the year and connected our test system, and that worked well. We had a kick-off call to launch phase 2 of this project at the start of the week. So our system providers, Hayward, will go away now, get this all set up so that we've got the connection in place, which is required to be done by the end of October. So that's fine. They're working on this with several other of their customers, and that's all going to plan at the moment. Just wanted to mention the climate strategy engagement exercise. So on the 27th of June, the local pension committee received an update on the upcoming review for the fund's net zero climate strategy and a proposed timeline for consideration. So the timeline is included within the report, and that will include we'll go back to the board in February to give oversight of the climate risk report and strategy considerations. Year end. So our year-end exercise concluded at the end of last week, and pension statements that were required to be issued by the 31st of August 2025 were. So we issued 37,640 statements. Most of them were online, but where members had requested paper statements, they were issued as well in time for the deadline. There were some small issues with some employers, so 124 statements were held off at the moment. We are working with those employers to resolve the issues at the moment. Those scheme members have been written to advise of the delay and that we're working with their employer to resolve those issues. So that's ongoing at the time of writing. But things are progressing, but we're not in a position to issue the statements just yet. Access and fairness. So the pensions manager has shared a response to the access and fairness consultation, and that's available in Appendix B. So the changes from the access and fairness consultation, if they are implemented, it will mean changes to the scheme. It will mean changes to funding, change for fund employers' payrolls, and the pension section to implement. So once those changes are made, they will become business as usual. However, there are backdating elements to the consultation, which will create significant work for the section to work through, which will be a one-off exercise, but it will require some system changes to be put into place. And just wanted to touch on employer risk. So another regular part of the report. We are working on admission agreements for various new employers following the outsourcing of some areas of work. We've got a couple outstanding in respect of Aspens and Stir Food that are mentioned in the report there. They were implemented they began just before the end of March. We're prioritising those at the moment. All is currently in their court as they deal with the requirements for a bond. We know that they are working through that, and again we'll be meeting to discuss that later this week, I understand. So we're waiting to hear from those, but we are keen to get those resolved as soon as we can. But that was all I wanted to cover, but happy to take any questions on what I've mentioned or anything within the report.
Any questions from the board? Ruth?
Yes, you did mention net zero. Well, at Reform, we're very sceptical about the net zero crisis. We think there's no crisis, basically, and the 1.5 degrees rise in the last 250 years doesn't really concern us too much.
Okay.
I guess from it, and Bhulesh may want to add to this as well, from a pension fund perspective, it's a risk that we have to manage. And that's how we treat it through the pension fund. There are still a number of risks from climate change, even if so there's a variety of evidence around climate change, and markets do respond to that. And even if that evidence is under discussion, there is still a risk that we need to manage, and that's the approach that we take. But so Vilesh may want to add to that if he feels there's anything else he wants to say.
I'm happy to add if anybody wants to add any further questions. But yes, Simone's largely correct there in the sense that we manage all risks, and climate change is just one of those risks that we manage. So we're not taking a hard position either way. It's on a balance of risks. So, it doesn't matter which path we eventually end up on. The fund is positioned in such a way so that we're not detrimentally impacted.
Thank you.
Sorry, Ruth, and then followed by Jonathan, please.
The tables on page 13, 14, they cross over. Where it's got the maximum target number of cases that can be processed at the month end. What exactly does that mean? Does that mean the maximum that you would want to carry forward into the next processing period?
Yes, essentially, yeah. That's our aim, to try and keep it to those figures as a maximum.
Okay, thank you. And then just moving on to the new website. Will there be some communications going out to employers for them to put on their local intranets to advise members, of the changes that are coming in terms of the new member self-service portal? And obviously, I don't know if it'll be a new link to the new website or whether it'll be the same link, because obviously people save those types of things out onto their desktops, shortcuts and things. So it's just ensuring that comms is in place, but I'm sure it will be.
Yes, we're planning to have a more detailed discussion in October in terms of how we communicate this, but certainly employers will be notified, members will be notified. There will be new web addresses, but we'll be working with our providers to ensure that this is managed as smoothly as it possibly can be.
Thank you. And then lastly, in terms of the member self-service side, I'm assuming there's not going to be a period where there's going to be no access for members. I mean, it doesn't appear that there will be from the timescales, but I just want to confirm that if the project slips, the old one will remain in place so that members can still access that information.
Yes. Yeah. We're not planning to have any periods of downtime between those. We're not planning for there to be any gap. Day one, the site gets switched off. Day two, the other site gets switched on. So it should be a continual service.
Hey, John, you okay? I've got a couple of questions. If I could please ask them as well. On point 33 on the Hayward website, it says action site build June, July not completed. Is there an update to that at all, Stuart?
It does say that. We haven't heard anything from them with regards to that. We're not particularly concerned,
okay.
But they're continuing to work through it. So I guess because the timeline for that came from them, I guess that was put in just to allow for some slippage. But we're not aware because we've got time between the end of July and the training that begins in October.
So you're confident you'll catch up with that delivery, and overall it'll be delivered on time?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
The other thing you mentioned, the board's suggestions with regards to the deferred members information. How do you want to, what do you suggest on that front?
I think from a pragmatic point of view, our preference would be that we look to automatically load this information into our system. But yeah, obviously it's a big step because there's a lot of records that we need to update. What I would say at the moment is that we don't appear to have a current address for these members. So
this is the 5,600.
That's right. Yeah, these are the cases that are a professional tracing agency.
But the agency's provided you with information that the addresses are correct. So there's a high level of I guess acceptance that the accuracy is there.
Yes.
Okay. So
yes.
I mean, my own thoughts are, but I'm happy to take advice and guidance from other members, is that I think you're going to be spending a lot more time and effort to try and get the information from these individuals, and they may not respond. And the likelihood is that they'll respond close to the time when they want their pension.
Absolutely.
And, you know, so to use the information the agency has provided with you is probably a possible way forward.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like it's a fairly big step because we haven't done something
Right.
on this scale before. So we really wanted to raise it with the board just to give you an idea, just for transparency, what we're looking to do, and a view from the board would certainly be welcome.
But your 2 attempts so far haven't given much of a return apart from the phone calls that you've made.
That's right, and that's the concern. Whilst the people that have contacted us have confirmed that the addresses that we've written to, they do live there now, and they were able to identify who they are and where they lived before, so we're absolutely happy with that. Ideally, we were hoping for a bigger return from that to be able to say, okay, so we've had an 80% success rate with this. We can plough ahead and update these records.
Is that what you would like to do? Phone everybody?
Not really.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
So I think I'll open it up to the floor in terms of Ruth. You want to?
Stuart, could you just remind the board what the data matching policy is for the dashboard? So is address one of the criteria in the data matching policy? Because my understanding is that they're going to have to have logged into their Government One account, I think, is that the right terminology? And that will have verified their address for them to have set up that account. So if they don't get a match, would they be directed, if address is one of the matching policies, would they be directed to the scheme to make contact at that point?
That's right, yeah. So our policy will be to match on national insurance number, surname and date of birth, but the postcode is the next criteria. So that may come into play. So we have got a responsibility, I suppose, to make sure that our data is as up to date as possible, so that what we don't end up with once the dashboards go live, that we don't end up with a number of partial matches, because full matches will work through the system. That will be absolutely fine. There's shouldn't be too much effort in terms of administration from the pension section point of view. If there's no matches, again, it's fairly straightforward. We don't have a record for you. It's the partial matches that fall in the middle that potentially could cause us additional work, and it's difficult to measure how much work that's going to cause, because we don't know how popular the pension dashboards will be. We expect there'll be a Martin Lewis program and there'll be a surge at the start, but once things settle down, it'll be difficult to get a measure of that. So what we want to do is try and get our database as up to date as we possibly can. There is a risk that if we end up with more partials than we would like, because we will have to report this kind of information, that this would come to the attention of the pensions regulator, who will want to know why our data isn't as up to date as it could be. So we're not looking to invite that kind of scrutiny. We want to try and get things as up to date as we possibly can from the start. So that's really our position.
Any other points of view or thoughts on how to take this forward? So how or did somebody else? Sorry, Ruth.
Can I just come in? I mean, I'm happy to support the chair's proposal. I mean, I suppose the ultimate risk is that you write to somebody, isn't it, that address with and the letter could contain personal information, and it's not that person. I mean, that's the bottom line risk, isn't it? If you upload those addresses to the scheme.
Yeah, absolutely. We're looking to keep those to a minimum. We minimise the amount of personal identifiers within that within any correspondence that we send out. But yeah, ultimately we're trying to keep those cases to a minimum.
And well, not to prolong things through you, Chair, do you have any sort of information about the geographical spread of deferred members? I mean, I'm thinking if Would they be mainly sort of Leicestershire based, or do people? As I'm thinking, is there an opportunity to do a bit of publicity on the website or county council website? That is.
So it's a very good question, Anthony. We looked at this actually, and our deferred members are literally spread across the whole of the UK. In fact, they go beyond Europe and throughout the whole world now, effectively. So to target one particular area, which is something we considered, sort of like Midlands, isn't going to work, Anthony. We did some work with Hymans on the data for longevity, Anthony, where you map where people live for longevity, longer living in the southwest, that sort of principle, and it demonstrated how preserved members are literally across the country. They're the ones we know about. Obviously, then there's this 5,000 that could be somewhere else. So I'm afraid that's not going to really help us.
I'm just thinking, Ian, that in terms of the way we approach our customers, our members, is maybe take it to the next level if possible, do whatever means you think is suitable. Be a bit more assertive with them in terms of, saying that, this may affect your pension if you want to get a response, if you do not respond and confirm X, Y, and Z. And we don't want to be too aggressive, but we need them to respond from what you're telling me. Need to have accurate data. Yeah, sorry.
I don't disagree, really. It's strange to think that we're trying to trace these 5,500 people, and from the percentages that are coming back, they're just not interested in keeping links in with their pensions, which is quite extraordinary in its own way, really. So I think what I would propose is we do make the change and we update those records to the 5,500 addresses we now have, but we take that similar step, linking to the point Ruth made as well. We don't, when we first write out to these people at the new address that's been provided, we don't include personal data. We keep that really low key, but we make the point of you must keep in contact with us. And that's really designed, that's what the design of dashboards is ultimately for anyway, to trace people back to these missing pensions. So it does kind of link back, and then there's more matches, less TPR intervention, and it should flow more easily. So that was what I would like us to do if the board,
I would think that sort of assertive approach and a cautionary note on there, you must or you please respond by this date or whatever you think is suitable, Ian. Otherwise, it may impact your pension. Do you think that would be?
What kind of pension sizes are we looking at for the 5,500? If they tend to be quite small, then that sort of threat is probably not going to do it. It might be that they're ignoring it because they don't think there's much value there.
Yeah, there were a mixture. A lot of them are small, and the phone calls that I have had when we've looked at the record, I think, this isn't going to change your life, but thanks for letting us know, sort of thing. It's a mixture. It is a mixture. When we wrote out to the members, the letter was along the lines that you suggested, Chair. We were trying to make the point that this is your money. Here's a deadline. Please contact us. Please get in touch. And I sort of optimistically thought that if we're writing to people to tell them we've got some money, that they might be interested, but not as many as I was hoping for so far.
The proposal that Ian's put forward, I'm happy for the board to sort of suggest on that in terms of accepting that proposal and then taking it from there. So accepting the information we've got for the 5,600 and then taking the next steps you suggested, yeah? Is that okay for everybody, yeah? Agreed? Okay.
Great, thanks all.
Are there any other questions or comments to be made, please? In terms of recommendations, I'm happy to agree the recommendation at page 24 of the agenda, and in that the board was recommended to consider the report with any comments made to be forwarded to the local pension committee. Is that agreed, please? Thank you. Second, thank you. The board were further invited to consider and comment regarding how to approach the updating of records where deferred members had been traced to a new address, and I think that's now been agreed as well. Yeah, the suggestion that Ian's made. Okay. Okie doke. We're now on to agenda item 7, and that's the Pension Fund Annual Report 24-25, pages 43 to 158, and that's over to Simone. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this report seeks comments on the draft Pension Fund Annual Report and Accounts for 24-25 prior to it being reported to Local Pension Committee, and that is later in September. You'll see the report is very long and it is very complex in part, so I'm not going to attempt to cover it all in detail, but I'll just pick out a few of the key elements of it really. You'll see from the intro that contains just some sort of quite key stats about the fund. So at the moment, the fund is valued at just over 6.6 billion. We've got 100,000 members and about 200 employers. We've also got just over half of assets pooled with LGPS Central, which does show some good progress towards full pooling, which we will need to achieve by March 2026, in line with the government's Fit for the Future consultation proposals. The report then does contain some very extensive information on financial performance, which is backward looking. So it starts with the draft accounts. So they are our draft statutory accounts that start on page 63. They are still draft, they haven't yet been audited, but they are there for review. And then it continues with a lot of investment performance information, which starts from about page 100. And again, that is all backward looking. It is the performance from 24-25. You've then got an overview of how the funding is managed from a sort of administration point of view, and how we have dealt with member benefits through the year. And you've got a range of KPIs as a summary on around page 121, but then the appendix includes quite a lot of KPIs as well. And you'll see from some of those KPIs that McLeod has continued to have quite a big impact on the administration because of the extra workload that Stuart's touched on. And you can see the impact of that through some of those KPIs. Some of those KPIs as well are kind of new requirements, and you'll see that we have we need to put some different processes in place next year to make sure that we can report on all of those KPIs. But we've suggested alternatives for the current year, so you've still got an overview. Then the report also gives an update on the training that we've provided over the last 12 months or so. That's for board and committee, and it also has information about attendance at those meetings as well by members. So there is a statutory requirement to produce this report and have it published by the 1st of December, which is part of the process now, bringing this forward to board and then committee. The accounts are currently being audited, and we'll give the board an update on that again when the opinion is received. That will be later in the autumn. And the report is only draft, and as you see, it contains a huge amount of information, and there are a couple of areas that are still being finalised, and we've highlighted those on the cover report. So I'm not going to go through each stage just because of how much there is in there, but happy to take any comments from the board, and also any comments that you might want to pass on to the committee. And between myself, Ian and Bhulesh, we're happy to take any questions that you may have on the report as well. Thank you.
Okay, does anybody have any comments or questions, please?
Thanks. Really detailed report. Just a couple of things. I found some parts of it quite opaque, and I'm sure that information has to be there, sort of the charges bit on page 115 onwards. Is there any way to provide some sort of more executive summaries in there of charges, the overall charges for the fund, and possibly some comparative data on how that compares to other big public sector pension funds in terms of what we're actually paying for it, in terms of our investments and our administration? Likewise, the performance of it, one big number giving performance over 1, 5, 10 years, and then comparing that with other public sector pension funds would be quite useful to get an idea of, are we doing well? And then just briefly, because I know this is not, appreciate it's not our area, the investment side of it so much, but the net zero thing, I think it does go beyond measuring alleged risks, the whole responsible investment thing. We're doing activism, we're voting at shareholder meetings to try and force big companies to go a particular way. We're divesting from things, we're investing in other things purely from an ideological perspective. I really think we should just be focused on maximising the returns that the fund gets. So again, I know it's not the pension board that deals with that, but could you say, so you don't need to justify that or anything, but could you just outline how we might go about reevaluating that? Would it be the pension committee, or would it be something at the annual meeting? Thanks.
I'll start with that last point, maybe just around. So in terms of evaluating the approach, you're referring to the responsible investment approach and our approach to climate. That is it would be part of the pension committee remit, and we do have various sort of climate strategies and responsible investment strategies as part of our investment approach, and they are approved by pension committee. We are doing a review of those strategies over the next few months, and I think they are coming forward to committee in December, and there will be a consultation approach there as well. Bhilesh might correct me if I'm wrong on that timescale, but it is a committee responsibility. But we do engage with the membership as well, because it is important to get all key members' view on our RI and climate strategies. So that's happened. I guess just in terms of kind of the points around divesting, just to be clear, we have the pension fund's focus is on its fiduciary duty in terms of maximising returns, and that remains the focus, but we do manage those risks in the round. And then just in terms of your first point about comparative information,
the reports talk about forcing Barclays to stop lending and investing for oil and gas extraction and things like that. So there is actual ideologically driven activism going on. Again, I'd come back to the previous point around that is in relation to managing risks that the pension fund perceives. But as I said, there will be an opportunity to contribute, or the committee will be contributing to that review over the next few months. Just in terms of the comparative information, in terms of the administration, I think there is some benchmarking included in the annual report, isn't there? Because Ian and I were discussing that last week. So there is some reference to how our admin function, the cost of the pension admin function, compares to other funds. So that there is some high level reference there. The content of the annual report is fairly prescriptive, I think, but we can take that away to see whether there is any scope to include any more comparative information for you. But it is quite prescriptive in terms of what information needs to be included and the structure of it. But we can certainly take an action away to consider that.
Could I just sort of make a point? I think we did sort of talk something about KPIs in terms of what we report on, and maybe these things could be considered when we do that review. Ian, is that a fair point? Yeah.
Yeah, taking that point first, Manjit, the KPIs in the annual report are nationally agreed by Scheme Advisory Board, so all funds have to follow those KPIs, and that was something that was introduced at the last annual report as a best endeavours was the term they used. But this year they've said it's the first time that we have to follow that sort of layout. And that's the point that Simone touched on earlier. We're working through that still, because whilst we managed to get most of it, some of our task processes are built in such a way that we have to then extract it in different ways, and we're still working through one or two of those. So hence why some are still blank, but we're still working on them for the final version. So they are mandatory effectively moving forward. So I don't think we have any scope to change the way that those KPIs are displayed. But I guess what we could do is we could add text around those as to explain more around
the clarity was what I was thinking.
Yeah, indeed, but still within that main layout. In terms of your point, if I may, going back around the sort of the value for money on the admin side, I can talk about that. We measure our admin costs, and they're actually detailed. I was just pulling it up as we were talking on page. Just bear with me, excuse me a second. Page 124 of the report shows our cost per member, and these costs are based on staffing costs, IT, actuarial and support services. So it doesn't include any in the investment side, if you like, but it's just the admin side. And
I had seen that, and I think it's more useful to get a clear percentage. I mean, I like that, but for the overall thing to include the fund costs as well. If we're paying out extortion, I mean, these costs are great. They look pretty cheap to me, but the investment cost can vary wildly on a fund. So
Yeah.
that kind of overall thing of, you know, your pension, the whole fund as a whole is costing 0.5% a year, something like that would be quite handy to have.
As I say, these are the ways that the Scheme Advisory Board tell us we have to sort of detail this. So I'm going to exclude the investment in terms of that point, but I take your point, but this is what I'm talking about from the admin.
But is it not possible to include this, but, you know, have another page somewhere else giving some big numbers that are very
I guess
easy to understand?
I guess I'd have to go back to Scheme Advisory Board and ask them their opinion on that. I'm not suggesting we couldn't, but I would have to ask, what scope do we have to move away from what they're actually asking us to complete, is I guess my question.
I'm not saying don't include this. I'm saying add something else with some very simple, clear numbers.
Is it a case of taking away the action, as you said, Ian, and then going back? So on, yeah.
I was just going to add, we do, in terms of the fees on the investment side, we do, I'm just trying to find it in the report, but we do monitor our costs as a percentage of our asset under management. So we do have that. We certainly include that in committee reports. What I'm not sure that we do is have any comparative information on that part. But we certainly have we keep a record of our total fees and what percentage they are of our total assets. The comparative point is what I will need to go back and check, I think.
That's an actual takeaway and report back at the next meeting, yeah. Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions or points at all, please? I just wanted to say, and I apologise, my mistake, I should have said this at the start, I've got the notes here, just to acknowledge, I think, that the work that Stuart and his team have done overall, and in particularly in getting all the annual benefit statements out. That's a huge, huge task. So well done on that to you and your team and the other teams. And for the report that Simone has presented, I think, you know, having read all that report, and I must have been late last night, it's a big report, but I've got to most of it and had some advice as well. The work that's done by the pensions team, supported by our partners, Hymans and others, to get the great outcomes we've had is wonderful. So again, I'd like to sort of pass on my thanks, Simone, to yourself, and if you can pass them on to other members, partners, etc., from the board, if that's okay from the board. And but taking into account that obviously, you know, there's always constructive feedback from the board in terms of how we can improve things, and it's always positive in my eyes that you take on board what we say and go away, think about it, and then present your options to us as well, which is fantastic. I think that's brilliant. Thank you. That's great. I think 7. So we've had that. So the recommendation really is, oh, sorry, bullish. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just go back on a question I don't think we answered? I think Dr. Boxham asked about performance against other public sector schemes. And I don't think there are as many to compare against. Though, you know, a lot of the public sector schemes can be unfunded as well. And if you were to find some that you could compare against, i.e. had assets as well, you'd have to find other schemes where their risk appetite was similar. So I think the real acid test for our scheme is how well we are funded, and it's a report that we will bring to the next committee as well. So we do have a funding level, which really kind of describes how well the fund has been performing. On top of that, we do take a report to each committee, which shows, you know, our longer term performance. So that's the 1 year, the 3 year, the 5 year, by each mandate that we're invested in as well. Again, happy to take any further questions there.
Okay, thank you, Bullish, for that clarification. Sorry, I missed you there. So in terms of the report itself, the board have been asked to note the contents of the Pension Fund annual report and accounts for 2024. Can I take the report as noted? Yep, thank you. And we now come on to the agenda item 8, which is Local Pension Board annual report, which, oh, I'm presenting, okay. So this is agenda item 8, and hopefully everybody's had a chance to read through the report. Again, I'm not going to go through every line or page, but what I will do is reflect on a few items and just go through the forward, if that's okay. And that's page 162. On behalf of the local pension board, I'm delighted to be able to present the 6th annual report of the local pension board of Leicestershire Pension Fund, which covers 1st of April 2024 to 31st of March, which aligns with the fund's annual report. I was surprised and not surprised, but the scheme membership has grown quite a lot over the last few years, by several thousand, I think it's fair to say, and also the amount of money that the fund manages, 6.7 billion, has also increased as well, which is, you know, phenomenal news in terms of the growth of the actual membership through new members coming on board, either from LCC or other employers as well, which is great, and the assets themselves are being managed very well by the teams. And it's noted that throughout the year we've complemented the administering authority, which is our teams internally, for managing the compliance with all the relevant regulations, which is wonderful. The board itself had no concerns about the Leicestershire Pension Fund or its administration, though it's key to say that we obviously monitor the welfare of the pension officers in administering the actions that are there, in particular cloud remedy and any other future legislative requirements. I would like to just add a couple of other points, if I may. In relation to administering the fund efficiently, effectively through all the ongoing pressures that we mentioned, McLeod and legislative changes which are coming through, we acknowledge that these may impact the team's resources and performance, and I'd like to say that the board will provide backing for justified support, additional support where identified, to allow the team to flex to deliver on the agreed priorities. And hopefully I'm speaking for the board on that point as well, because we've seen in previous years where you've had a lot of, I mean, not that you don't have this year, but a lot of pressure on you to get things done, priorities, and you've had to flex up, but you've justified why you need the additional resources, and that's what I'm saying here, to agree to flex your teams according to priorities. We've also mentioned in the paper here on pages 167, I think it is 167 to 169, training. I would say keeping a level of awareness of legislative changes, policies, rules, etc., and possible impact on the fund of its operations is key for all members of the board and for the committee as well. This is made easier, I think, through the excellent work, excellent training organised by Ian and his team, and also Angie by her team. So thank you for that. And directly, because we've got training courses arranged in the future directly in the house, but also through the Hymans Robertsons, our independent partners, and also through the LGA's fundamentals course, which I would recommend that everybody please sign up to and do. It's a good course. It's online. Another point I'd say is members of the board, and this equally, as I've mentioned, applies to all LCC teams involved in managing the fund. It's essential that we do attend the training offered and equip ourselves with the required level of knowledge and raise our own awareness over a period of time, because things do change regularly. And in order that we can provide the required level of review, scrutiny and support, together with what I call supportive challenge and constructive feedback to our colleagues who manage the fund in our roles as the pension board. To assist us, yearly training plans are created based upon our needs and the feedback that we give. And a summary of the training that was taken on board in 2024, 2025 is given in the reports, as I mentioned, 167 to page 169. I would encourage all board members to invest the required time in your own training and attend and complete the training that's offered. I appreciate this is a big task because people have got other jobs as well to attend to, but I'm sure this will benefit you going forward. So I would just like to say, does anybody have any comments or questions at all? Anthony?
I'd just like to second what you said, Chair, in terms of the work of the officers, but also grateful for your reference in your report to the work of the former member, Mrs. Rosita Page, who was quite a stalwart in terms of making sure that from a political level there was the right support for the pension fund. And I think as a member, an employee representative, I recognise greatly the hard work that's done by officers in the finance department to make sure that it works very well. It's a very good fund. And I think the proof of the pudding is more in the fact that colleagues, former colleagues, retired colleagues, speak very highly of the good service and the fact that they don't have any issues. That contrasts strongly with other public sector pensions that I'm aware of, such as teachers, where there are big issues with regard to payment of benefits and processing of information. So I'm most grateful. Thank you, Chair.
I just sort of add a point to that, Anthony. I mean, I've got a couple of pensions, so I have interactions with another pension fund, and I've said a couple of times to Ian that the service that your team provides and the administration support that Andy's team provides is sort of very, very good. There's always areas we can improve, but that's what I've said. You've said you're happy to do that, and so yeah, I'd echo those comments as well. And yes, I was going to come on to the last sort of paragraph there that to take the opportunity to sort of give my heartfelt appreciation to the previous chair, Miss Councillor Rosita Page, for her contributions and leadership on the board, and she was a great past chairman. If there are no other further questions, I would like to just say the recommendation was the board has been asked to approve its annual report for 2024-25. I'm happy to move that the report is approved. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you. And can I take that this is agreed, please, by everybody? Yep, unanimously. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the risk management and internal controls report, which will be over to you, Ian, for that, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the standard report that goes to each board and committee, and it's a quarterly report. And what we do is we look at the risks around the whole fund. It's not just administration, this is the admin and investment. So I link in with Bhulesh and Bhulesh's team as well when we're pulling this together. There are 19 risks split into 6 different areas. And what we do is we bring any changes to the board and committee just to provide an update. The updates are detailed in the report. I wasn't going to propose to go through them line by line because the information is detailed there. But when there is any significant changes, i.e. an increase in risk, we'd obviously highlight that as a particular point we'd raise, but there is nothing of that nature. This is just really providing an update on the latest position, but happy to take any questions if there are any, Chair.
Sorry, are there any questions from the board?
Just to ask officers, was there any particular risk that causes you any issues?
From an admin side, Anthony, you won't be surprised to hear me say McLeod still gives me sleepless nights. I think where we've got to is a phenomenal effort by Stuart and his team in terms of the annual benefit statements, Anthony. That was a massive task in itself. We're now tackling the pensions in payment, the 400 cases that Stuart's mentioned, plus any more that we'll find in the meantime. Working through those. We are looking at the moment in implementing some payroll changes, which will be new elements to enable that to proceed through the payroll system. The first ones I think are going to happen in probably October, I think, from memory. So those first changes will start going through. They are going to be a significant piece of work. We've started scoping the size of that task, and it's looking approximately about half a day per case to check, and then a little bit extra time to implement through the payroll system and the communication obviously with the member. Then we move on to the areas that we haven't yet started to really tackle, which are transfers, deaths, and trivial commutations. We, as you know, we've had the extension to the 31st of August 26. So we have the full extension period granted, which I think every single fund has also, Anthony. So we're not unique there. But that remains a significant administrative risk. Not in terms of being able to complete it, we will, but that timescale is still going to be extremely challenging when we're also doing dashboards for the first time. Business as usual, reviewing all the KPIs and the way that we measure, new website, new member self-service, and an ever-growing increase in numbers of employers and scheme members. So it remains challenging, Anthony. But I'm beginning to ramble, and apologies. But in a nutshell, McLeod, Anthony.
Are there any other questions or comments? We are, as a recommendation, we're asked to note the risk management and internal controls report. Can I take that report as duly noted? Yep, for everybody. Thank you. Item number 10, as previously stated, I have no items of urgent business. The next item agenda is the date of the next meeting. Could members please note the next meeting of the local pension board is scheduled for 29th of October at 10 a.m. I would like to declare the meeting closed.